All right. Now, did you guys join because of the link I sent in Canvas?
Yes.
All right. How about you, Rebecca? Oh, and Hannah's here too. Excellent. Hannah, did you join through the link I sent through the Canvas email?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just barely. Can you hear me? You can hear me though, right?
Yep, I can hear you. And yeah, I joined through the email.
Okay. As I was having a little bit of an issue with doing all the team stuff and everything over the last year and a half, they've really changed things around. But in your own Canvas page, about the third link down on the left-hand side, it'll say home, then textbooks and course materials, and then Microsoft Education. Microsoft Education is where everything should be. And oh, Caleb, you're here. Good. And since I've integrated Teams or whatever the word for that is, it should show up in your Canvas calendar too, our meetings. And before I get started, I just wanted to mention that um, this is an asynchronous online course, but every week we'll have meetings for about an hour and a half or so where I go over stuff, I answer questions, we look at things that people have turned in, I critique them, and then everybody can like resubmit, make the changes that they need to and resubmit and all that kind of stuff. But oh, Alex, you're here too. Good. And you don't have to be here. Thank you. You don't have to be here, but I will tell you something. I have been teaching since 2003. And what I have noticed is that there is a direct correlation between the people that show up and the people who get A's all the time. And if showing up for you means that every week you watch the recording, that's fine. But I have noticed that right now, the people, Samuel, Rebecca, Hannah, Caleb, and Alex, there is a higher probability that you guys are going to get A's from this set of people. And it's not because I'm keeping track. It's just that when you do show up and when you have a consistent schedule that you keep in this class, even though it's online, you will consistently get A's. And that's what happens. And I'll talk a little bit about what an A looks like in this class and everything. But I also want to say that I have had um, in this class, we're going to have about 18 people in this class, and there's 5 people showing up right now. There's a good chance that these 5 people are going to be A students. But I also say that historically, with UVU students in this class, we get half to 2/3 of the class get A's. I mean that's because UVU students are hard workers. I mean that's just the way it is. And so getting an A is not. I mean, showing up to this live session is not specific to getting an A, but more people that do show up live are also among the A group. So I have not had, with out of a class size of 18 or so, we'll have about 12 to 15 A's. And out of that group, I'll say there's a good chance that all 5 of the people that are here today are going to be in that A group. Okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Trying to say it's not a guaranteed thing, and you can get A's when you do watch the recordings. But I have noticed that the people who get A's who watch the recordings are also the kind of people that schedule every week. They'll watch it at the same time. I know UVU students, you guys we live in the real world. All of you have jobs, all of you are professionals. And if your job keeps you from coming live to this, then most often, if you set a schedule, like if Saturday morning is the only day that you can do it on Saturday mornings. And those kind of people also that keep that schedule are the kind of people that get A's. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. And I'm really glad to see Caleb and Alex because you guys are nodding your heads at the exact right times. that deserves brownie points. If the gold star stapled to your forehead. Excellent work. Oh, I'm just really glad when people show up, when I have several people show up, that's awesome because then we can talk about what we're looking at. You guys can ask questions. We can go through stuff and I can target whatever it is we're addressing that week more to the people that are actually breathing. If I'm just by myself, I have a set of stuff that I go through and it gets boring even to me, which is pretty amazing because if boredom had an A in it, my name would be right there. I mean, I'm the boredom king. So that's boredom makes me comfortable. Anyway, okay, what I would like to do today is and I want to make very clear for everybody that I don't grade attendance during this. What I will do is later on tonight after class is over, I'll put a link for the recording up in that assignment and I'll show you how to find it and everything like that. And when you find that link, if you've already been here live, you just go to it, and the assignment is you write down 5 things that you learned or that you noticed. Like for me, you can say the background is either from Ringworld or Halo, and Ringworld is Larry Niven novel that actually inspired this world from Halo, and I'm wearing a blue shirt or whatever, and then some of the things you learned. It doesn't matter. You're writing 5 things down that prove that you watched this. And if you watch the recording, you'll get the exact same amount of attendance points if you write down the 5 things again after watching the recording. So because this is asynchronous, I really, really appreciate the people that come on live. I think you get a better experience, but if you can't make it, that's not a big deal. You can still get all the points. I've had several people get over 100% of the points just from watching the videos and being consistent every week. I think that the biggest thing is being consistent. If you have a spot that you always work on, if you pick a couple days a week and you spend a couple hours each of those days to work on it, you're going to have to really bend over backwards and go out of your way not to get an A. It's consistency. And like I said, I've taught at UVU for several years, but I've actually taught at about 6 different universities across the state. And I found UVU is one of those schools where you guys know what it's like to live in the real world. You all have jobs. You're all professionals. You behave like professionals. And if something does happen, just let me know, and I will do whatever I need to help you succeed. Because my job is not to flunk people. My job is I'm here to help you guys succeed, whatever that looks like for you. And I've had in the past, I've had students that have just kept me aware of what their situation is. And towards the end of the semester, they haven't turned in a lot of things, but we worked through it. I had one student who, if you guys remember several years ago, there was the COVID thing. He actually had 2 parents that he was taking care of throughout the term, made it very difficult to turn stuff in, and he thought he was just going to have to walk away with a D. And he told me the situation. He was able to work through it. And within 2 weeks, he was able to finish the last little bit that he needed on all of his assignments and walked away from the class with an A minus. So you guys can do it. And I am happy to work with you. I have never refused an extension on any assignment when somebody's asked me. Now, on the other side of that, I have had people that have called, written to me a couple months after the end of the semester wondering why they got a crappy grade. And you probably already know what happened as to why they got a bad grade if they waited 2 months after the end of the semester to start thinking about it. And generally, if you let me know what's going on, I will bend over backwards to help you. If you decide to wait and call me from the bathroom of an airport in Newark, New Jersey, to explain to me over the phone why you can't make the final that started a half an hour earlier, that's going to be a little bit more of an issue. Now, to prove, to demonstrate that I am happy to work with people, I have had people that couldn't make a live final, but we're not going to do a live final in this class. It's asynchronous, it's online, there is an online final you take. But when I do an online class, I have had people call one of their friends in the class so they could participate over the phone with the speaker on, and take part in the final. And that's fine because their parents did not pay attention to the final schedule when they bought them their ticket to get home. But I'm happy to work with you. Another really good example, I think, was Jason was telling me one of the students was in a wheelchair and she couldn't move pretty much anything below her ears. And the school was able to provide her with somebody to go around and create the art as she directed it. So it was still her art, but she was using an additional set of hands. So UVU is really good about doing what it takes to help you be successful. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. So I want to show you a, a little bit about how this class works, but before we get to that, I want to hear from each of you one at a time. Just let me know where you're coming from, because even though this isn't the whole class, I find that this usually pretty gives us a pretty good idea of the spectrum of different kinds of backgrounds that people have. So if it's okay, I'll just start with Samuel. If you wouldn't mind just telling me um, what your uh, kind of major self-focus is, and then also what your major is in the university and what you kind of do.
So I am going into animation and design. That's where my goal is getting into. And this is one of the courses that my counselor has told me about that will be very helpful into that field.
All right, excellent, very good. We've had this class. I've had several people that were animators and digital designers come to this class, and they said exactly what your counselor did. They were amazed at how making stuff out of toothpicks and tissue paper can actually help them in their digital design. So that's exciting. How about you, Rebecca? What kinds of stuff do you do in the real world? And if your speaker's
Um,
not working, I'm sorry, what was that?
oh, sorry. Um, well, I am studying art and illustration. This is also one of the classes that they recommended me to take, but I'm actually moving over closer to Orem, so that's why I'm doing online this semester, but then I'll be moving over there and doing in-person classes in the fall.
All right, great, excellent. How about you, Hannah?
I am also going into illustration. I'm applying for the BFA next spring, and I'm very excited to take this class because I have been working on making references for my oil paintings. That's mostly what I do. I do oil illustration, and it's so nice to have physical, real world references, and that can be hard to find. So I've been experimenting with making my own. So I'm very excited to do more of that.
All right, excellent, very good. How about you, Caleb?
All right. So I am a art education major. I want to be a high school art teacher. Specifically, my focus right now has been drawing. That's what I have the most experience with. However, I'm trying to widen kind of my horizons, broaden them, so I know a lot more about different art mediums, so I can uh, be kind of more well-rounded. Maybe I'll like something more than just drawing. And even if I don't, this class is going to be very helpful, again, for reference, but also kind of understanding how like things work in the real world, like kind of how they look. So.
All right, cool, excellent, very good. And Alex, how about you?
Hi guys, my name is Alex. I'm a graphic designer. That's what I'm studying for. I'm just applying for my associates in the fall and then for the BFA in the spring. So it's very quick for me. It's funny that you mentioned Newark Airport because I'm from New Jersey, so I thought that was funny. But I am actually reporting from West Valley, Utah. So I wanted my classes online this semester because gas prices are through the roof. Yeah. And that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Man, I am so glad we don't live in Oregon. We're not doing this in Oregon because gas prices suck here, but they are really bad there. Holy cow. But yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in California is like almost like $8, $9. I saw today that by my house it's almost $5, so it's getting worse. It's getting
Yeah.
worse. I don't know. I'm nervous, guys, but yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, so right now, I don't know if you asked for this, but I work currently as a graphic designer for the University of Utah. So that's I'm kind of like co-working on this project, but I am excited for this class. I like working with my hands. Plus I get editor's block is what I call it when I can't come up with a design. So this is something that will help me a lot this summer.
Oh, that's excellent. I love that. This is a good mix of people. Thank you, Alex.
Hmm.
This is a really good mix of people because you guys are all pretty much 2D guys. I do want to warn people a little bit. I have had folks that have spent their entire life focusing on 2D expression. They do occasionally get headaches from this class, and it's just because there's a different way of thinking. And I used to joke about that a little bit that they might get them, but I've heard from people that there are a couple of projects that do give them literal headaches. It's not just a figure of speech. And the only thing I can think of is one of the things we're undergoing in this class is training our brain to make new neuronic pathways. And that which is a real thing. And sometimes that can give us headaches. And if it's stress headaches, that's something that just be encountered, but it will get better. And what is interesting to me though is the way to overcome that the quickest is when you find something in this class that is irritating. Like all of you guys are 2D people. We're going to start thinking 3D, things like that. Maybe it'll be the wire uh, assignment in a couple weeks that'll really irritate you. Recognize the irritation, recognize the frustration, recognize that we are not building masterworks in this class. I'm sorry to say it, Hannah, but you are not going to become world famous because of the wire sculpture that you build. We are doing these as exercises. All of you guys are accomplished and professional artists. All of you guys know how to do professional quality work. What we are looking for is high quality craftsmanship, but we are not looking for mastercraft masterworks. Well, and going back to what I was starting to say is when you recognize that pain and that discomfort level, dedicate at least 45 minutes to an hour just working on that. And what that does is it forces a new neuronic pathway to start being developed in your brain. And the next time you work at it, it's going to be easier. But if you work at it for like 5 or 6 minutes and then go away to something else, it's like I don't know if any of you trained a dog, how frustrating it is if you try to do one trick once, walk away and then come back the next day and try to do one trick again. They're not going to remember. But when you go over and over and over again, then they start learning. And I'm not comparing you guys to pets, but I am saying our human brains work in a similar way. If we can recognize those things that cause us discomfort and then just focus on them for at least 45 minutes, then we start building those pathways and it becomes easier. And that psychosomatic headache starts going away. We address the frustration and we deal with it. I mean, you look back your entire life, all of you guys, I know you're successful because you're here right now. You look back at all the times in your life that things sucked. You know you were able to do it because you're here right now. You overcame it. And now that has gotten to the point where maybe it's a funny memory, maybe it's an anecdotal memory where you pull out and tell at parties when somebody asks you about the worst date you've ever been on, something like that. But in any case, you've already proved that you can overcome stuff like that. So, uh, one thing else that you probably notice is that am on the spectrum, and I Sometimes 30%, sometimes about 90% of the conversations we have takes place entirely inside of my head. So if I have leaped ahead and you don't see what the connecting points are, stop me and ask me to clarify, please, because I'm convinced you already know. But that you already know the other part of the conversation that's taking place inside my head. So if you are confused, let me know. My kids say my brain is like a pachinko machine, and they are not wrong. Okay, so with that, I want to go on. I do have several things that I want to get to and touch through tonight. If you have questions, um, let me wind down a little bit before charging in with a question. I have had students that were really excited and kept interrupting me with the questions. And a lot of the times, most of the questions will be answered by the time I wind down. If they're not, then please feel free to ask me. Okay? All right, I'm going to do a screen share, and I scale a lot because I'm trying to focus my eyes on the screen. I want to remind people again, if I neglect to mention that I recognize your remark, it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's because in my head I have already said, Alex, that was the greatest thing I ever heard, or Caleb, I'm so glad you're here, but I just don't always say that out loud. So please don't be offended. Okay. Sometimes when I do the screen share, for whatever reason, there's a little bit of a pause. If there is, just do ask me to repeat myself, but hopefully we'll be okay. All right, so this is what my interface looks like on Canvas. And can everybody see that? Okay. Now, on this, hopefully you guys is pretty similar, except your to-do list is probably going to look quite a bit different. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything. There are a couple things that are important that I want to talk about. And we'll get back to it in about an hour or so from now. Um, some of the things, so I'm not going to go through everything, but the couple of things that I'm going to go through is iterate on how the course will work. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about attendance. We've already done that, but I'm going to ask if you guys have any questions about it. We're going to do the prep for the first day of class. We're going to do that towards the end. And I am going to talk about the schedule a little bit. And then a couple of things I am going to talk about is the tools of artistic critique, artist research or service learning, and then sculpture-based photography. And we're going to talk a lot more about this next Wednesday. So this is the first real module. So the way that this class is set up, like I said, my brain is kind of like a pachinko machine. But we do have 6 primary constructing modules. Okay, you see this module 3, and I don't have everything opened up. I just have the first several modules opened up. I think we have the first construction module opened up, and then applying the tools of artistic critique and module 7A opened up, as well as you have full access to these 2 things. A couple of things that I want to mention about these is each of the modules build on the previous ones, and I will open up several more each week until in 3 weeks from now, everything will be open except for the final. And what I've done is these are each going to take about 2 weeks or so, maybe a little bit longer. There's a lot of overlap. These ones don't take near as much time. And to be honest, module 6 will probably only take you about a week, and module 5 will probably only take you about a week. But you really need both of them to address this module. Paper mache is going to be something that you're going to do in a couple afternoons. It's going to be done. And that's why some of these don't have their own full module. And then the module that the modules that are interspersed, 7A, 7B, 7C, These are projects that the department is having us do for this class, and I will explain more about that in just a little bit. But instead of having you do one gigantic project that's due at the end of the semester, I've broken up into 4 pieces, and you just do a little piece every couple weeks. I know if any of you guys, are any of you guys taking ethics this? Because I've had several people in spring terms take an ethics class that's also required, and there they have a major project that's due at the end, and it causes meltdown, and I don't want to do that. And so that's why I split that one up, throughout. And then some of these are things like this one, it's not due until July, but I want you to know about it now because you are going to be using these tools to help the depth of your critiques throughout the course of the term. All right. So does everybody kind of understand that? By everybody, I'm looking at Caleb and Alex because both you guys have your screens turned on. So not to put any pressure on you, but you guys are responsible for the reactions of everybody in the entire class. Okay. Now, so that's kind of how this class will work. Everything builds. And you'll also notice I have right here, it says complete all items. What that means is I have, as an instructor, it's kind of frustrating sometimes to know that people just don't understand the principles and they get angry because they don't feel that they're capable. That's frustrating to me because all of you guys are professional artists. All of you guys are capable. You validated that and proved that by being where you are right now. And I don't want you to feel that you're frustrated. I don't want you to feel um, overwhelmed at any level. And that's one of the reasons. And the reason why I'm explaining all this is because I have had people that will skip right to the assignment portion and try to do that, but they've missed all this other stuff that they need to get to go through in order to get to and be prepared for the assignment portion. And I know that taking an online class, you want to get to the assignment, you want to do it, but if you do that without the prep work, you're going to be frustrated, and I don't want you frustrated. So what this complete all items thing means on modules 1 through 6 is you have to open up each of these pages in sequence in order to get to the sculpture-based photography assignment page. And most of the modules look pretty much like this, but I don't have to have like this introduction. I'm probably not going to have this introduction in all of them because you don't really need it. It just kind of tells you how to set up everything. And I do have recommended hours to complete. And part of the department mandate is everybody's going to do a work log, and we'll talk about what that is. But the way that you work through this module is you open up each of these pages in sequence. So the introduction, then the reading, the quiz, and most of them are gonna be in the same order, not all of them. The background, I'll explain what that is, and I'll just review on the background stuff. And then after all that, then you can work on submitting the sculpture-based photography assignment. So does everybody kind of understand how that progresses? If you go to the end of a module and the page doesn't open up, it's locked. Thank you, Samuel. It's locked simply because you need to go through each of the pages in sequence. And whether or not, I don't have a timer on it, so it doesn't gauge whether or not you're reading it or anything like that, but I want you to have access to that material before you go to the final assignment. Okay, so that introduction kind of tells you about what to expect, and this kind of applies for each of the modules. Some of this stuff is specifically for an online class. Some of this stuff is for an in-person class. I don't always have the reading labeled because sometimes this will be in the quiz or the module page, and it does make sense. But this is kind of basically how everything is structured. So the way I got to this page was, and I'll run through this again. I went to module 1. I went through each of these pages. Now we're on the third page, which is the quiz. And this quiz, everybody should have gotten the email that I sent out. Did all of you folks get the email? It was like a 14,000 page email, something like that. Not, I'm exaggerating. It was only 1,400. But it was telling you about how to get your book and stuff like that. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. The book is really important. Each of the you're responsible for 6 different quizzes, or 7 different quizzes. Each of the quizzes that refer to the book, there are questions in there. You will get the wrong answer if you Google them. You only get the right answer if you use the textbook. And you can buy your own textbook, but you don't have to. And I give at least 6 different ways of getting a hold of the textbook. Some of them are more or less expensive than others. Archive.net is a really, I think that's the right website. They are really good, but they every once in a while they will have issues with uh, just how they interact with copyright law. And if for whatever reason it won't allow you to access the textbook for free through that, you can always access it through the Fuller Library or the Fulton Library. And one thing that's interesting about that library, and this is recorded, so I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for it. No, I don't think so. The Fulton Library does have, you can either go in and use one of the 6 copies that are there, but if you can't get to Alex, you're out and you said West Valley. If you can't have access there, you can call the Fulton Library or email them and see what the process is. But they have 6 copies there and they can digitize the chapters you need and email them to you. Okay, so if you can't get on campus, they can, and I should say that specifically in that email too. But if you can't get on campus, that's another way to access the textbook for free. But if you want your own physical copy, you can. There, I gave you several different ways to order it. I did see that Amazon has a physical copy for like $200. Do not get that. That is absurd. That is ridiculous. Um, I think it's Facebook Marketplace. Past students will sell their copy for $5, $10, something like that. You can get it on eBay. You can get it on AbeBooks. There's lots of different places you can get it. I think the record for the cheapest book so far that somebody's gotten is eBay, including shipping, $4.99. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. Pretty amazing. If you do get yourself a physical copy, please keep it and then post it on Facebook Marketplace after the end of the class, because that you're really going to help out other future students. Do not spend more than $35 on this textbook if you want to get a copy. The cheapest we can get it for you through the bookstore is like $90. That's why we're doing this separate route. Now, the reason why that is all important, I'm going to do a screen share again for the back to the quiz. By the way, I really appreciate Alex and Caleb. You're so expressive facially. I am really feeling good that human beings are responding to me. So thank you. Okay, so we're looking at right now is the quiz. The quiz is due May 17th. It was due this Sunday, but I know that a lot of people aren't going to have their books or access to the materials by then. Each of the quizzes, it tells you right in the title of the quiz which chapters you're doing. So you can call Fulton Library or email them, ask them to digitize those chapters. I would call them. I would go to the circulation desk and call them for the first time and see if you can get an email from one of the librarians so that you don't have to keep calling them every time. But if you do not have access to your book by the 17th, let me know. But I've given you enough different options that should not be a problem. Everybody should have access to it. And then if I click on preview from my screen, then I'll show you what the quiz looks like. And if there's any images in any of the quizzes that are not showing up, tell me, and I will. We have had problems before. I do have PDFs that I can email people that have the images of the quiz. So these are all drawn from those two chapters. I know they're in the two chapters. I've read the book several times, and that's where I found the answers. But like I said, there are some questions. Like question one is one of them, where if you try to get the answer by Googling it, you're going to get the wrong answer. All right, and we'll go over the quiz if you want to on Wednesday, next Wednesday, but the real reason for this is to just make sure that you are accessing and reading those two chapters in the textbook because they are really important. Now, all these quizzes, like this, the whole conversation about French's goal for this, French was the one who did the Abraham Lincoln sculpture on at the mall in Washington, D.C. That conversation is outlined in the book, so that's where you get the answer from. 4 degrees of three-dimensionality, that's also in the textbook. So you do need access to the textbook. And like I said, you can get access for free. It just causes a little bit of going out of your way. And then there are 9 specific ways of involving the viewer. And you describe 5 most intriguing. Now, what happens is the first time people take quiz, maybe about a third of everybody gets it perfectly right. And that's great. You get a perfect score. On all of these quizzes, you can take them 17 different times if you'd like. But what I will do when I grade them is I will tell you which ones you're missing, so you can go back and readdress it. And if it's like a true false, you go back and do the other answer, and you can retake the quiz. Some of the times I'll say refer to the text, so that that lets you know go back to the textbook. The point values for each of the quiz, they're all different, and but like I said, you can take the quizzes 17 different times if you need to, but I do that so that everybody has an opportunity to get perfect scores on the quizzes. And for everything else as well, when I do critiques, when I tell you that points are missing because of this and that, I'm doing that because we are not this isn't a live person class, and because of that, there has to be some leeway on my part. So in lieu of meeting with you one-on-one in person, uh, I will say things like, you're missing these kinds of points, go back and redo this, pay attention to how we do photography or whatever it is, and then you go back, make those changes, and resubmit. And that's how you get more points. All right, and I'm sorry, I lost track of what I was going to say, but that shouldn't surprise anybody. However, I want everybody to understand that, get that. If you turn in something to make sure that you've hit the due date deadline and it sucks and you only get like 2 points out of 70 or whatever it is, what you've done is open the door so that you can resubmit as many times as you need to. So if Caleb absolutely blows the first quiz and doesn't even get their own name right, at least you've tried and you've opened the door so you can take the quiz 17 more times if you need to get a perfect score on it. All right. If you guys put in that kind of effort, there's absolutely no reason that you're not going to get 100% out of the class. All right. And this is especially true of any of the assignments. If anything's missing, if I say, you need to tweak this, sand it more, do this or that, then make the change and resubmit it. If I don't grade it immediately, let me know and I will go back and get it graded. So you know what to do for the next time around. All right. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Um, let's see. The next thing I wanted to talk about is attendance. And then we're going to talk about service learning and um, research. And then we're going to talk about the artist selection. I'm sorry, not the artist selection. Then we're going to talk about the tools of artistic critique. And then we're going to circle all the way around, back around to prep for the first day of class and the first module. So let me show you what attendance looks like. And if this is confusing to anybody, join the club. But I'm trying to do my best to align all the little pachinko things in my brain so that I can communicate with you guys. All right, so this is what an attendance module looks like. And I'm going to backtrack really quick here. So second thing down is the attendance. Open up the attendance. This is what it looks like, and I'll get to pick up your kit in just a second. Attendance and participation talks about why that's important in the class. Introductions, we'll get to that in just a second. And then we open up this. Notice I have to change the dates and everything, and I will do that before posting these for people or publishing them. What each of your attendance weeks will look like is, and this, I try to get this up within 6 hours of the end of the class. What you're going to have is a video link that will take you to our YouTube class page. And that's what this will look like. You know, that video link. We do have a YouTube class page. When you guys do video projects, all that will show up on the YouTube page, so you guys can check it out. So that's what's good. That's what you're going to be required to watch, which will be the recording of our live class discussion. And then I will also mention something during the discussion that I found I cannot show you during a recorded section we're going to post on YouTube because I'll get dinged with a copyright violation. Used to be that it was fine for uh, university or education channels, but not anymore. So we're going to talk about this, and you will need to watch it. You know, these little extra videos may be a minute or two, up to 6 or 7 minutes, but you will need to watch both of them. And in this case, for this first week, you'll say 4 things that you learned or saw or noticed about this week's Teams meeting, and 1 thing from watching this 6-minute video. And so that's what attendance is going to look like for this week. And then you'll submit it with a text entry box or a file upload. Occasionally, I get a smart aleck that will write this out and take a photo of it to turn in. I say smarty pants or smart aleck because you guys are all university students. When you submit assignment, unless I say something specifically otherwise, it should all be typed out. All right. So that's how attendance works. Now, the next thing I want to show you is talk a little bit about the artist research and service learning. Have you guys, well, I guess I should backtrack a little bit again. You also notice that each of the modules have a work log. How many of you guys went through one of the modules and saw the work log assignment? Did you see that? Okay, a little bit. The department wants you to be aware of the value of your own time. And all of you guys, you are professional artists. You do need to keep track of your time. Sometimes it's not going to be directly billable to clients, but you'll need to keep track of your time just so you know, uh, like for future projects and stuff, about how long it takes you to do stuff. So each of you, for the majority of the modules, are going to be a little work log, and I'll show you what one of those looks like really quick here. If we just open up module 1, go down to the bottom, work log, I'm going to click on this. It's going to look different for everything you do. But the work log is specific for the time you spent on activities related to that module. So this is specifically for construction module, the first one where you build a house and photograph it. If when you do your artist research and you're going through watching videos and stuff like that, you're going to include that. Um, research and artist review for the background stuff, you're going to include the time you spent watching the videos for that, which in this case is 2 hours and 15 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes for this, 1.5 hours for that. And then you're just going to write it down. You don't have to do much, any more than like 5 words to describe the activity that you're doing is too much. And this is just so that you know about how much time you're spending on each of the modules, basically. And then at the end of however you want to do this, you also need to include a total amount of time. Total time on module, 9 hours and 50 minutes. And then you put this all into a text document, and this is where you submit it. This is one of the department mandates for this class, so you can keep track of the time you're spending. But it's also really important as a professional artist to keep track. I don't know, Alex, do you do billable hours in your stuff?
As of right now, no, since I'm just working as an intern for the University of Utah, so I just get a paid regular salary, just like a small salary. But I'm trying to start a little Etsy shop, so maybe in the future, but not right now.
All right, good. But this is something that I think is really good for all of us professionals. When you're doing your editing work and stuff like that, just so you know in the future about how long each project will take, and like when you do do when you do your billable hours, when you start your Etsy shop, it'll be really important
Yeah.
when you do that. And those of you that are also graphic designers, digital illustrators, digital designers, when you start going into like game design, this is going to be really important. Um, and so this is just something that each of the time that you do this, if you just have an idea, write down a note. I spent 3 hours on Wednesday doing this or whatever. Each of these work logs take less than 5 minutes to put together and submit, but it is important. And I just gave you the rationale as to why it's important. So anyway, just an illustration of this too. The billable hours, the your time being important, it's not because you're going to be working for 20, 40, $60 an hour. It's because you need to be aware of the value of your time as well. Pablo Picasso in the late 50s, somebody came up to him and saw him in a cafe and said, I just got really excited, went over to him and said, here's a napkin. Could you scribble something really quick? It doesn't matter what it is, whatever it is, I'll pay for it just because you're Pablo Picasso and I want something from Pablo Picasso. And he said, well, okay. So he looked at the napkin for a second, scribbled something, and then signed it, handed it to her, and said, "That'll be $10,000." And she said, "What? It only took you a second." He said, "Yes, ma'am, but it took me 52 years to get to this second." And that's how I want you guys to think about your time like that, because you are not a function of that 15 minutes or 3 hours or 2 days it took you to do that. That 15 minutes, 3 hours, or 2 days is a result of the years that you have already put in to honing your craft and professionalism. So, I want you to think about that too. Okay, sharing the screen again. Okay, so you see right here the 7A, it's module 7, but I split it up into 4 different parts. So it's A, B, C, and D, originally enough. And each of these, we talk about doing the artist research, but also as an alternative to the artist research, you have the option of doing service learning. And I'll talk about that in just a second. For the artist research, what you're going to be doing, you are not going to be required to do both the service learning and the artist research. You're not going to be required to. Most of the time, when people do the service learning, they think it'll be easier, but they end up spending more time than doing the research. But I do think it's more rewarding. And that each of them are structured. So you have a very specific structure you have to follow for the research, and you have a different but very specific structure you have to follow for the service learning. So I want everybody to read through this, make sure you read through the whole thing, and it does explain that process a bit. But what it comes down to is for the artist research, you're going to be picking an artist, compiling a list of data points that are citations for that artist, and then you're going to be doing a presentation, a recorded PowerPoint. You do not have to record your own voice, and at no point will you have to share your face on the screen. I've had students who've done the PowerPoint where they wrote out a script and they had a cartoon voice. I think the best one was Elmer Fudd. They had used an AI program, and Elmer Fudd narrated their entire um, presentation, which is great. And then at the end, you'll have a 5-paragraph opinion essay. And each of them have very, like I said, very specific requirements. That's what you'll do for the artist research. If you choose to do the service learning, what you're going to be doing is determining a data set that illustrates your unique qualifications, whatever they are, your unique life experiences as an artist, graphic designer, digital designer, whatever it is that you're doing. And then you're going to be finding different, and I give you the contact information for the on-campus service learning funnel that there is. But what you're going to be doing is finding a group to work with, determining by working with them, you'll determine what needs they have and how your specific skill sets can meet those needs, design your service learning project around that, and then share what the experience is. All right. So both of these, and I usually get about a third of the class, a quarter to a third of the class will want to do the service learning typically. And that can be a little bit of a challenge. And in that case, the due dates are always a lot more flexible simply because you have no way of controlling when so-and-so from that organization returns your emails or your phone calls. And you do have to interface with them. I have had people, some of the service learning projects in the past have been when COVID hit, one person, she had a business doing custom designed skateboards. And so she created a custom designed skateboard for a local eatery whose business was dying because of COVID. And she used her connections on social media to show that custom designed skateboard. And she got people from the people that made the parts for the skateboard got excited and fed it into their social media as well. And she was pretty much single-handedly saved that restaurant because of all the social media channels that she was able to access because of her specific custom design skateboard, and everything related to it. So, and I also had one person who really wanted to do service learning, but it kept failing, kept failing, kept failing. And after 3 tries, they almost gave up and finally found a retired wounded veteran in their neighborhood and had organized a project where the whole neighborhood came and built a sculptural chicken coop. And that ended up being fantastic. So, there's a lot of leeway for if you're going to be doing that. Now, notice that I do have artist research option and service learning option. As soon as when we're done tonight, I'm going to put everybody's names on these. As soon as you tell me you want to do artist research or service learning, I will remove all of the other assignments. And there's like 3 or 4 assignments that are pretty that will be removed when you tell me which route you're going to do. So if you're going to do artist research, you're only going to do the artist research options. You're not going to be responsible for these. If you're going to do service learning, you're only going to do service learning options. You're not going to be responsible for the artist research options. Does that make sense to you guys? But that's why I have you do that right away. Everybody does need to watch the second disaster video. That takes you to right to a video that you need to watch. And I want you to go through this whole thing. And then the work log, when you do this, you're not going to be sharing how long it took to do the quiz in the module 1. You're only going to be sharing all the items that you did for module 7.A. All right, does that make sense, Rebecca, Samuel, and Hannah? How I've explained that? Samuel, yes. You have a question? Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry, I meant to raise a hand, raise the thumb, not a hand. Oops.
Well, I'm glad you raised the thumb and not a finger. So good job. And by the way, extra points for anybody who laughs at my stupid dad jokes. Of course, the points are about have as much value as the new shows on the CW. Nobody really cares, but still, it's something. Again, Alex, gold star stapled to your forehead. And you too, Caleb. Okay. All right. Now, so that I talked a little bit about the research and artist research and service learning. We'll talk about that again on Wednesday. One thing that is I need you to know is that the due dates are there specifically to kind of keep you on track. If you feel like they're too crowded together, let me know. I don't really pay an awful lot of attention to them. Even though in the syllabus it says that I will deduct points, I everybody who is late, they always tell me what's going on. Like I said, I never refused an extension. So just try to keep it on track. If you feel things are getting away from you, talk to me and we'll do what we need to take care of it. Okay. Right. So I'm sharing the next thing with you now. Okay. So again, course overview, attendance, module 1, module 7A, applying the tools of artistic critique. For me, the Feldman's model critique that Jason and I like to use, that's something that I feel really negatively towards the critique that most of us have been trained on, which is critique is a bad word. It means tearing down. It's something negative. It's something that you don't look forward to. And I do not like that. Critique should not mean tearing down, causing pain, apprehension. Critique, the root of critique is the same as the root for critical. And again, critical means something negative for most people. It's not. It just means with intent, on purpose. That's what critical means. You're doing it on purpose. So critical thinking doesn't mean that you're a jerk. Critical thinking means you're thinking with purpose. And one of the problems that we have as artists, and this is we're all highly intelligent people. We just can't, that's a burden that we're forced to bear. Sorry, everybody else. That's just what we got to deal with. But as highly intelligent people, as all of you are, one of the problems that you have is that when you do something, the moment that you do it, while you're doing it, your brain is already thinking of ways that you can do it better. And you hold yourself accountable to those things that you're thinking of, how you can do it better. And so sometimes you get caught up in a loop where you think, oh no, I really screwed this up. This is terrible. I need to go back and redo it. And this is where we get the misapplication of the term perfectionism. All of you guys are perfectionists. Some of you will admit it. Most of you will admit it. But everybody that knows you knows that you're a perfectionist because you're not judging yourself as to what you've done. You're judging yourself as in comparison to what you learned through the process of what you did and how you can do it better next time. but you're holding yourself accountable to a false standard because you cannot hold yourself accountable to what you haven't learned yet. You can't, but you do. And that's part of the hyper intelligence of us artists. That's what we're, that's the burden we're forced to bear. So I want to disillusion you of the misapplication of the word perfection. Perfect does not mean it looks like it can never be assailed. No one can ever find a fault to it. Perfect does not mean that it looks like Japanese nanobots from 40,000 years in the future aligned all the molecules exactly right. That is not what perfect means, but all of you, that's what you're telling yourself it does mean. The synonym for perfect, and I want you to hear me very clearly on this, the synonym for perfect is done. You got that? Perfect means you finished it. Period. That's what it means. So when you are doing one of these projects, I do not want you to hold yourself accountable for all the stuff you didn't do because you were too dumb to know in the future that you would learn it. Because none of you are dumb. None of you can see into the future. And if you can, you already know what I'm going to say, so you might as well tune out. But what I want you to realize is when you start doing these projects, you are going into uncharted territory. You're going to be learning stuff that you're going to try to hold yourself accountable for not knowing, and you cannot do that. Perfect means done. The other side to that is getting it finished in 3 hours when I say it's going to take you 9 hours is not going to train your neuronic pathways the way they need to go. If you think you've got it done in 3 hours, you've not got it done. In I've I've taught for 23 years. There is a direct correlation between time spent and grade earned in these classes that I teach. What that means is if you do it for 2.5 hours and you think you're done with it, I guarantee you're not right. I mean, you're wrong. Go back, work on it some more. Go back and work on it some more until you get to that time frame of hours that I tell you we need to be at. That's not arbitrary. That's something, Jason has been teaching this for years. I've been teaching this for years. These are the time frames that we look at for what we want people to go through and the skill level, the craftsmanship level we're expecting, and for generally for most people. There's going to be a minimum range and a high range. You can do more than the high range. A lot of people do more than the high range, and it's a lot more enjoyable for the rest of us to see their artwork because it gets to be fun for them, and that's why they're doing more. So pay attention to that time frame. Pay attention to the idea that you are going to be judging yourself and holding yourself accountable to a false standard, and that's why I need you to remember that perfect means finished. And be aware that we are training you to do uncomfortable things so that you can do them well by the end of the term. All right, does everybody understand all that I've blathered on about? Getting back to the burden of glorious purpose. Oh, thank you, Samuel. Getting back to the burden of glorious purpose. How I am misapplying that quote in this case is we are going to be talking about critique, and we're talking about Feldman's model for critique. And I've chosen to use this model because I like the fact that it applies to absolutely everything, and it applies equally well to absolutely everything. Doesn't matter if you switch careers, you're going into nursing, or if you're going into computer programming, or if you're going to become an astronaut when you grow up. It doesn't matter. Whatever you go into, the Feldman's model of critique will apply. And in this, I want you to watch this video, and I have links on it several times, but you only need to watch the video once. You will notice that they go through and apply Feldman's model of critique very specifically in looking at this work. And I can't watch it because I will get dinged for the copyright violation, but you will have a link to that video in your attendance assignment, and you will need to watch the video. It's 6 minutes 32 seconds. most things are endurable for at least 6 minutes, 32 seconds. If you've ever baked cookies, sugar cookies take 9 to 15 minutes to do. If you can stand waiting for the cookies to get done, you can watch this video. Now, here's the 4 tools of artistic critique. Describe. I want you go through and before watching that video, look at all these 4 tools. When you describe, you are separating yourself from your assumptions about the artwork, whatever you're encountering, and you're just talking about the visual facts. There's specific styles that are being used. What are the colors? What's the size? Who's the artist, if that's pertinent? And the medium, if that's pertinent. And many times they are. But you are looking at things like, is it realistic, abstract, non-objective? I said size. Does it feel like it has a weight to it? Does it look like it's going to be blown over? That starts going into this, but do the materials being used look like they're sturdy or weak? Do it looks like is it place specific? What are the first things you notice when you look at the piece? Is there a general mood to it? So the first one is basically how we encounter that object that we're examining in our shared reality, essentially. Analysis, this is where we're trying to figure out how the artist did what they did to achieve different effects. How are the elements organized? This is a really good one. How are the principles of design manifested in this object? How have the materials kind of directed how the artist did it? How did they use tools to make it? How did they make it in general? How do you think they made it? You're starting to extrapolate. Here, you're just describing how you encounter it. Here, you're starting to extrapolate how it was made a bit and getting into the artist's head and the decision making. The third step is interpretation. When we get to that, we are starting to imagine some sort of avatar of the artist and starting to have a conversation with them. Is the work, do you feel that it's easy to understand? Does it use symbolism? Does it use implication of symbolism? Does it make references to things outside of the piece itself? Is it specifically cultural, do you think? Is it trying to say, do you feel it's trying to say something? And this is where you can start guessing out, if you know anything extra about the artist, what do you think they're trying to say? And then the fourth one is evaluate. Is it successful? Now, if the piece has engaged your attention and it makes you want to explore it even more, then it's successful. If the piece has attracted enough people's attention that somebody bought it for $1 million, it's successful. If it's well enough made and it's important enough that people took care of it and it's lasted for 30, 40, 50, 1,500, 3,000 years, it's successful. If it has challenged how you view the world and has forced you to expand your worldview, it's successful. So think about all those kinds of things. And I want you to work. I raised 4 daughters, 5 daughters, and I have maybe a total of 9 now, because of blended families and stuff like that. Let's see, 6, 7, 8, something like that. I can't remember. I can see their faces, but I don't know the number. It's so sad. But the phrase that I like to use is pull up your big girl pants and use your big girl words. when we do these things, when we talk about this, I want you to use your grown-up words, use your grown-up vocabulary. The more precise you can be, what's interesting about words is the more precise that you can be with words, not only does it allow people to feel that you're communicating with them better, but it also helps you to think more critically and think with more precision. Who knows? Who knows when the word blue first started showing up in Western literature? Anybody? How long has blue been a color? Since the light birth of the universe, 14.7 billion years. It's always existed as a wavelength. Humans have seen it for as long as our eyes have been the way that our eyes have been, which may be about 2 million years. So we've always encountered the color blue, but it wasn't given a name until I believe it was Homer who started using the word for blue in the Odyssey. Before then, it didn't show up as a color anywhere in Western literature. Isn't that interesting? How many words do you think today are there for the word blue or for the color blue? A lot, a lot of them. When you're a baby, you have how many emotions? Maybe two, and you're either satisfied or you're dissatisfied. And there's many reasons for being dissatisfied. Maybe you're hungry, maybe you pooped your diaper, but that's pretty much the two states that a baby has. When you start talking to kids as they're in first, second, and third grade, yeah, they may be upset with somebody, but they can't really articulate why that person made them mad. Especially a toddler, they'll just get mad at a lot of different things. But as they are in first, second, and third grade, they're starting to understand that you aren't just full blown mad. There's different levels to being upset. Maybe it's not mad, maybe you're upset, maybe you're perturbed, maybe you're irritated, and it's not quite at that screaming, yelling, mad stage that when you're a toddler. When you're a teenager, you have all these different start getting all these different nuances. You're not just mad, maybe you're upset, maybe you're apprehensive, maybe you have fear. But as the words, your awareness of the words for describing with precision your emotions expands, the nuance understanding of where those emotions are and what you can do about them also expands. And this is true of all our vocabulary. As we get older, as we read more, we understand more and more about the use of words, and we can be more precise in our communication, but that also feeds back into our brains, and we can be more precise in our thinking. I'm also a folklorist. I come and present every year at the folklore conference at UVU. We talk about things like ghosts and Bigfoot and stuff like that. And I really talk about that nuanced level of communication that also allows our brains to interact with different influences and hopefully understand them. And it is related to folklore. And if you guys are interested, in another week, we'll talk about that. But when you talk with precision as you are describing, when you talk with precision as you're interpreting or evaluating, not only does it allow you to think with more clarity about what the art that you're encountering, but it also helps other people to appreciate that art themselves more. If you say, "Oh, Alex, yeah, that was a nice flower," that means next to nothing. But if I say something along the lines of, I really love the fact that are paying attention to the three birth flowers that are consistent with my own um, history. I thought that was kind of cool. But what I've loved about what you've done here is you focus the light so that it really picks out a very intriguing and interesting focal point in the piece itself. It goes from I'm being very specific. I mean, it went from, oh, that's nice, to I'm being very specific. And it actually demonstrates to that person that you're talking to that I care enough to be precise with what I'm talking about. And whether or not I like it, when you take the time to be precise in your description, the person feels that you've acknowledged them and they believe that you've liked it, whether or not you are. Whether or not you did like it doesn't make any difference because they feel that since you've acknowledged their presence and you've taken the time to focus on their work with a little bit of precision, they feel validated as a human being. And it brings that that whole atmosphere about critique to a completely different level. Whether or not you like the object is that process is communicated a lot less than the fact that evidently you care enough about that person being a human being that you took the time to be precise in your observations. Do you see what I'm saying? And it feels a lot better just as a human being to be able to do that. So definitely go through that, applying the tools of artistic critique, and you will notice that these aren't due. The self and peer critique aren't due until July, And one of the reasons is every time you create something, you're going to be posting it onto a discussion board. And some of these we'll talk about it. Some of these we won't necessarily talk about it, but all of them I want you guys to see. And as you see them, these are the discussion boards. As you see them, it'll give you an expanded option of things to draw from for when you do your peer critique. Because everybody's going to be responsible for making a 3 to 5 minute video that is a peer critique and a 3 to 5 minute video that is a self critique. So again, we'll talk more about those next week as well. But I want you to go through this stuff and just be aware of it. Then the last thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the prep for the first day is each of the modules have a background. I give you a list of anywhere from 5 to 8 artists to go through, and I want you to watch all these videos. I try to keep the videos really short. If anybody finds a link that isn't working, let me know, and I will replace it. But these are just to show you several different artists, introduce you to them, that like this 9-minute video, you don't have to watch that. That's why I included the 3-minute video. But I want you to be aware of other artists that have done stuff like the work that we're focusing on for that module. And for this, and then after you watch those things for the artist review, you're going to write like usually a 3-paragraph short essay that deals with your responses to those artists that you interacted with. And those are primarily so that you can gain a little bit broader understanding of what we're doing in the module. I'm sorry, that green banner keeps flopping down. It's irritating. And then we get to the sculpture-based photography, what you're going to be doing about this. And I want you to go through this so we have something to talk about on Wednesday. We're going to go over it more. But what you're going to be building is a little house smaller than a volleyball. And I give the size requirements and everything like that. You're going to give it texture. You're going to make it sturdy enough that you can move it around. But you're going to take 5 different photos of it to submit. So you're making a cool little house and you're taking photos of it. And these 5 photos, you're going to do a close-up, distance view, put it in an unusual setting, unexpected lighting, and super creative. And you can do on its side while you're climbing a tree, have a chicken attack it like that, do a kaiju type thing where you have the camera down low and a toddler stepping on it, burn it, whatever, doesn't matter. That last one is a creative one. So you're making a house that is fun to look at, fun to photograph, that you'd be happy to photograph. You're going to put it in 5 different settings to make it 5 different photos. And those 5 photos have to follow. One is going to be labeled close up, one is going to be labeled distance view, one unusual setting, one unexpected lighting, and one super creative. So that's what that is. And that is due next Sunday. And I think in this, I also say something about the work log. Do not post your work log in this submission. You have a separate assignment separate submission for the work log. Just post it in that instead. But this will be due next Sunday. So we will talk more about this on Wednesday. But I want you to go back and look at these examples and get some ideas about building a house. And you can see how creative they are. So about 6 inches. And you can see some of them are abandoned churches. Some of them are kind of cool German style Bavarian houses, traditional. Just these guys were really creative in the kinds of things that they did. So and we'll talk more about that next Wednesday. But the last thing I want to talk about is, or do we have any questions about the stuff that we've talked about so far? I know it was all over the place, but I needed to cover that. How are you, Hannah and Rebecca? How are you guys doing? You still hanging with us?
I'm still here. I'm making it through. Yeah, I'm feeling good.
Okay. All right, good. It's a lot of info. This first week, I want you to read through all that stuff, get a handle on it, and then on Wednesday, when you come, then you'll be able to ask questions and stuff, and we'll go more in depth over particularly module one with the house and the artist research / service learning. I want you guys to read that, go through that module because when you read it, I give you the access info for the on-campus um, service learning office, and they have tons of resources to work with. And people have done, I know, Alex, I think you had said art education. Um, no, Caleb, you were the one, art education. Okay. And then Samuel is digital animation. Okay. Uh, there are people in the area that have that you guys can work with. Like Caleb, if you wanted to do something where you teach classes, there is everything from end of life care all the way home to homeschooling in the area, and even charter schools that would love to have somebody like you teach their stuff. And the reason I was thinking of you, Alex, is that somebody else that did your exact same thing, doing contract work for different schools and stuff like. You said you were an intern. They actually went and did volunteered at Salt Lake Community College specifically for to help people put together their stuff to start applying for jobs, and taught the people in the design program what how to get that together, how to put their portfolios together so they could have a job like you do. So and that's yes.
Um, I think I can try that, but I just met my boss off of Facebook and I got lucky.
Okay, well, forget what I said then. No, but I mean, there's service learning opportunities everywhere, and what doesn't count is setting up chairs at church or for a wedding. That does not count. Setting up chairs for community theater, that does not count. But several people have been involved in community theater and use their art skills to volunteer their time to direct the building of props and sets, and that works great. So if that's something that you guys are interested, talk to me more, and I will connect you with those people on campus. But that can be very rewarding. Anyway, okay. So last thing, did any of you guys bring with you the little paper thing to for the first day that was prep for the first day?
I have it, but I don't have a camera, so you'll just have to take my word for it.
Okay, honor code, honor code. Oh, that I'm sorry, that for like brain like a pachinko machine. Um, I wanted to mention there is an AI policy. I'm 99% sure I have it in the syllabus. The AI policy is just like photography. Artists use it and paint, oil paint or digital media. Artists use AI as a medium. You can use it if you use it for help with your writing and outlining and stuff like that. But the words that you write and submit as your own voice needs to be your own voice. All right. And I want to be very clear about that. I've had people before submit essays where in the middle it says, I cannot offer an opinion because I'm a generative AI platform. At the very least, have the common courtesy and self-respect to proofread what AI puts out and put it in your own words. Okay, rewrite it at the very least. Use AI as an out to make an outline, but rewrite it in your own words. So when you submit somebody or something else's work as your own, it is it's not being ethical or honest. Anyway, okay. So I want to share this with you. I wanted you everybody to find one of these shapes, print it out, and make it. It has to have at least 7 sides because there is a shift that takes place when you go from two-dimensional to three-dimensional that this site more than anything else illustrates. You print it out on flat piece of paper. You cut it, you start folding it, you start putting it together, and something magical happens. You have transformed through this weird geometrical alchemy 2D shape into 3D form. And I think that that is absolutely astounding. As you do this, I want you to consider what is really going on the moment that it goes from 2D into 3D and what that shift is. Now, with your remarkable brain that you have, I want you to just be aware of what that process is and see that shift as you go from the 2D world into the 3D world. We're going to be working with everything from bubblegum to pipe cleaners in this class, real world stuff. None of it is digital. But I hope that you use your 2D background and experience to inform your 3D work, like in helping you to design the house and everything like that. And then the 3D things that you learn, I hope that goes back and informs your 2D work. So be very aware of that process, and we'll talk more about it on Wednesday about that shift. But I wanted people to dip their toes in and go through that now. Pick a shape like the octahedron, and where it's printed flat and it folds up into an eight-sided ball. And it's what's really fascinating to me is all the mapping that NASA is compiling right now is showing that mega clusters of galaxies, these superclusters where they're constellations of galaxies, not of stars, seem to form not randomly, as would be explained by just a super explosion 14.7 billion years ago, but they seem to be coalescing with awareness of, on some level, of these polyhedral shapes, particularly as NASA is mapping the observable universe. There seems to be awareness on the part of these galaxies. Gravity just brings them together so that they start coalescing on the apexes and edges of a gigantic octahedron, which is a three-dimensional extrapolation of the golden section. And you guys should all know about the golden section. I just think that that's really interesting. But hopefully that keeps you from going to sleep tonight, honoring that. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you very, very much for joining me. And I will put this in the attendance. It should be up online for everybody to access within a couple hours. But again, thank you, Samuel, Rebecca, Hannah, Caleb, and Alex. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And everybody who watches this, if you can come on our live sessions on Wednesday night, that will really help me out quite a bit too. But if not, that's fine. You can watch the recording and access it all that. I mean, access everything that way too. If anybody has any problems or you see anything, links that are broken or whatever, please email me and let me know. And if you have not received that email that I sent last week, let me know because that gives information about accessing the textbook. All right. Thank you guys, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.